Hello, everyone. Welcome to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I am truly happy that you have chosen to spend some time with me today. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest? That little knot of fear that twists in your stomach when you are in a situation where you need to speak English? You have the thoughts, the ideas, the sentences perfectly formed in your mind. You know exactly what you want to say. But then, when you open your mouth, the words feel like they are trapped, stuck somewhere between your brain and your tongue. Or perhaps, even more frustrating, you begin to speak, and suddenly, your mind feels like a blank white wall. All the words you knew just a second ago completely disappear. It's a feeling of being invisible, of your voice being stolen. If any of this sounds even remotely familiar to you, I want you to take a deep breath and know, really know, that you are not alone in this feeling. This is a common, almost universal experience for nearly every person learning to speak a new language. It's a sign that you are pushing your boundaries, that you are in the process of growing. Today, we are going to do more than just talk about this fear. We are going to explore it, understand it, and learn how to overcome it, step by step. We will discover together how true confidence in speaking English is not about being perfect. It is not about having a flawless accent or a huge vocabulary. Confidence comes from the simple, brave act of trying. It is born from the willingness to speak, even if what you say is not perfect. It's about giving yourself permission to be a learner. To guide us on this journey, we are going to follow a story. It is the story of a woman named Elena. As you listen to Elena's story, I want you to do more than just hear the words. I want you to listen with your heart. Pay close attention to her journey, the ups and downs, the moments of fear and the moments of triumph. Notice her feelings, the ones she shows and the ones she keeps hidden. And most importantly, pay attention to the small, seemingly insignificant steps she took to build the confidence she so desperately wanted. Her story might just be your story too. Her struggles might be your struggles. And her victories, no matter how small, can also be your victories. Elena had recently embarked on a new chapter of her life. She had moved to a bustling, vibrant city where English was the primary language of daily life. This move was a dream she had nurtured for years, a chance to advance in her career as a graphic designer and to experience a new culture. In her home country, Elena had been a diligent student of English. For over a decade, she had spent countless hours in classrooms, memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. She had become quite good at the passive aspects of the language. She could read complex articles in online magazines. She could watch her favorite American movies with the English subtitles on and understand the plot. And she could follow along with podcasts and news reports, grasping the main ideas. She was, on paper, an intermediate English speaker. But speaking? Oh, speaking was a completely different world. It was a world filled with anxiety and fear. It felt like a locked door for which she had no key. The part of the language that was supposed to connect her to people was the very thing that made her feel most alone. Every time an opportunity to speak presented itself, a wave of pure panic would wash over her. It was a physical sensation, a cold dread that started in her stomach and spread through her entire body. She was utterly terrified of making mistakes. What if she used the wrong tense? What if she mispronounced a word? Her mind would race with worst-case scenarios. She imagined people not understanding her, their faces twisting in confusion. Even worse, she imagined them laughing at her accent, which to her own ears sounded so thick and clumsy. So, to protect herself from this potential shame and embarrassment, she mostly stayed quiet. In social gatherings or at work meetings, she became a master of silence. She would offer a polite smile and a series of well-timed nods. She would listen intently, but she rarely, if ever, spoke more than a few essential words. Yes, no, thank you, and goodbye became the cornerstones of her English vocabulary. Her silence was a shield, but it was also a cage, and it was starting to feel very small and very lonely. Every day, she felt the gap widening between the person she was and the person she wanted to be. One bright and sunny afternoon, the kind of afternoon that usually made Elena feel optimistic, she found herself in a cozy little cafe tucked away on a quiet side street. The air inside was thick with the rich, comforting smell of freshly ground coffee beans and sweet pastries. The low hum of quiet conversations and the gentle clinking of ceramic cups created a peaceful atmosphere. This was Elena's happy place. She loved to come here to read or just watch the world go by. Today, however, she had a mission. She wanted to order a caramel latte, her absolute favorite drink. It was a small thing, but it felt enormous. In the safety of her mind, she rehearsed the simple sentence over and over again, like an actor learning a critical line. "Can I have a caramel latte, please?" She whispered it to herself, trying to get the rhythm right. "Can I have a caramel latte, please?" It was just 7 simple words, but for Elena, that sentence felt like a monumental mountain she had to climb. A mountain she had failed to climb many times before. The line moved forward. A young man with a warm, friendly smile and a bright green apron was working behind the counter. He served each customer with a cheerful energy that made Elena's stomach clench even tighter. "Next, please," he called out, his voice clear and confident. It was her turn. Elena's heart immediately began to pound against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. She felt her palms become slick with sweat. She took what was supposed to be a deep, calming breath, but it came out as a shaky gasp. She walked slowly towards the counter, her legs feeling strangely heavy, as if she were wading through thick mud. I want a coffee," she stammered. The words came out in a strangled whisper, barely audible over the hiss of the espresso machine. The friendly barista leaned forward, a look of polite confusion on his face. "I'm so sorry. I didn't quite catch that. What can I get for you today?" he asked, his voice still kind. A hot flush of shame crept up Elena's neck and spread across her entire face. She could feel her cheeks burning red. A thick lump formed in her throat, making it impossible to speak. All the words she had practiced, all the courage she had tried to build up, it all evaporated in an instant. She felt the eyes of the people behind her in the line, and she was sure they were all staring at her, judging her. Defeated, she gave up on words. She simply raised a trembling finger and pointed at a picture of a latte on the colorful menu board behind the counter. The barista's smile returned, full of understanding. "Ah, a latte. Great choice. You got it. What size would you like?" he asked. Once again, Elena found herself unable to form the words small or large. The shame was too overwhelming. She gestured with her hands, holding them a small distance apart to indicate a small size. She quickly paid with her card, avoiding eye contact, and scurried to the waiting area at the side of the counter, her whole body tense with humiliation. She felt utterly defeated. She had failed. In her mind, the verdict was clear. She couldn't even say a simple sentence. She was a failure at English, and a failure at this new life she was trying to build. Now, let's just press pause on Elena's story for a moment. I want you to think, really think, about what just happened. Have you ever had a moment like this? A moment where you felt exactly like Elena? Maybe not in a cafe, maybe it was in a classroom, or at a party, or during a phone call. You rehearse a sentence, you know what you want to say, but when the critical moment arrives, the words just vanish into thin air. If you have felt this way, please know that it is perfectly okay. The very first and most important step in overcoming this fear is to acknowledge the feeling, to accept that it is real, and that it is a normal, natural part of the language learning process. It does not mean you are a failure. It means you are a learner. It means you are human. So, let's think about this together. What do you think Elena could have done differently in that situation? What would you have done if you were in her shoes, feeling that same wave of panic? Take a moment to really consider this. Perhaps you would have taken out your phone and typed the order into a notes app to show the barista. That's a great strategy. It's a way of communicating successfully, which is the ultimate goal. Or maybe you would have taken another deep breath, tried to ground yourself, and attempted to say the sentence again, more slowly this time. That's also a wonderful strategy. There is no single right or wrong answer here. The goal of this exercise is to start thinking about different strategies you can use when you feel stuck. Being prepared with a backup plan can make a huge difference. For example, before you go into a situation where you know you'll need to speak, you can practice what you might say. Let's try that right now. Let's practice ordering coffee together. I will say the name of a type of coffee, and I want you, wherever you are, to say the sentence, "Can I have a coffee name, please?" Say it out loud. The physical act of speaking is important. Are you ready? Let's start with an easy one. Espresso. Did you say it? Did you say, "Can I have an espresso, please?" Good job. Now, let's try another. Americano. Listen to yourself. "Can I have an Americano, please?" Excellent. Let's do one more. A slightly longer one. A flat white. "Can I have a flat white, please?" Fantastic work. Does it feel a little easier after a few repetitions? This is how we build confidence. Through practice, practice, and more practice. The more you do it, the less strange it feels. Let's get back to Elena. She was sitting at a small table by the window, the weak afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. She was sipping the latte she had managed to acquire, but she wasn't tasting it. She was just going through the motions, her mind replaying the embarrassing scene at the counter over and over again. She felt miserable, a heavy cloud of sadness hanging over her. Just then, a familiar voice broke through her thoughts. "Hey, there you are. I was wondering where you went." It was her colleague, Ben. Ben was a native English speaker who worked in the same design firm as Elena. He was a kind and patient man, and he was always encouraging her to practice her English, telling her she was doing better than she thought. He saw the sad, lost expression on her face, and his smile faded into a look of concern. "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Elena let out a long, heavy sigh. She felt a lump forming in her throat again, But this time it was from sadness, not just anxiety. She recounted the entire story to him, her voice quiet and full of shame. She told him how she had practiced the sentence, how her mind had gone blank, how she had to point like a child. She expected him to be disappointed in her, or maybe even to pity her. But instead, Ben's reaction was completely unexpected. A wide, gentle smile spread across his face. "Elena," he said, his voice soft and reassuring, "you got your coffee, didn't you?" Elena looked down at the cup in her hands and nodded slowly. "And," he continued, leaning forward slightly, "you went up to the counter, you looked the barista in the eye, you tried to speak, and you successfully communicated what you wanted. You did all of that, even though you were terrified. Do you realize what that is? That is a win. That is a huge, massive step forward." Elena stared at him, completely surprised. A win? She had seen the entire interaction as a complete and utter failure. It was the furthest thing from a win in her mind. Ben could see the confusion in her eyes. He explained that the true goal of communication is not to achieve grammatical perfection. The goal is simply to be understood. It is about connection, not correction. He told her that making mistakes is not only okay, but it is actually essential. It is the primary way we learn and grow. He said, "I want you to think about a baby learning to walk. Does a baby just stand up one day and walk perfectly across the room on the very first try? Of course not. A baby falls down. It falls down hundreds of times. It stumbles, it wobbles, it looks clumsy and foolish. But the baby doesn't feel ashamed. The baby doesn't give up and decide that walking isn't for them. The baby just keeps trying, day after day. And eventually, after all those falls and all that effort, the baby walks, and then runs, and then climbs. Learning a new language is exactly like that. You have to be willing to fall down. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to feel a little foolish sometimes. Every mistake is a step forward, not a step back. Ben's analogy of the baby learning to walk struck a deep chord with Elena. It was a simple idea, but it was powerful. She had been so hyper-focused on speaking perfectly, on avoiding any and all mistakes, that she had completely forgotten about the process of learning itself. She had forgotten that every single attempt, no matter how small or imperfect, was a step in the right direction. She had been seeing her stumbles as failures, instead of seeing them as part of the journey. Ben then leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. He decided to give her a concrete plan, a way to put this new perspective into action. "I have a challenge for you," he said, his eyes sparkling with encouragement. "For the next week, I want you to have one small, imperfect conversation in English every single day. The conversations can be incredibly simple. It can be as simple as saying hello and have a nice day to your neighbor, or asking for the price of a piece of fruit in a shop. The only rule is that you have to try. You have to use your voice, even if it's quiet, even if it shakes a little. What do you say?" Elena was hesitant. The thought of deliberately putting herself in a position to feel that anxiety every single day was daunting. A part of her wanted to say no, to retreat back into her safe shell of silence. But another part of her, a part that was tired of being afraid, was intrigued. Ben's words had given her a tiny glimmer of hope. She looked at his kind, expectant face, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Okay," she said, the word a quiet promise to him and to herself. "I'll try." The next day was a new day. Elena woke up with a feeling of nervousness, but also a sliver of determination. Ben's challenge was a little scary, but it was also a concrete plan, something she could focus on. Her first challenge for the day was one that many language learners find terrifying: making a phone call. She needed to make an appointment with a dentist. She had been putting it off for weeks, telling herself she would do it tomorrow. But today was the day. She found the number for a local dental clinic online. She stared at the number on her phone screen for a long time, her thumb hovering over the call button. Her heart started to beat faster. What if they couldn't understand her accent? What if she didn't understand their questions? She took a deep breath and remembered Ben's words. Be willing to fall down. She wrote down a short script in her notebook. Hello, I would like to make an appointment for a checkup, please. She practiced it a few times, her voice a little shaky. Then she pressed the call button. A friendly voice answered, Good morning, City Dental Clinic. How can I help you? Elena's mind went blank for a second. The speed of the receptionist's speech was faster than she had expected. She took a breath and looked at her script. Hello, she said, her voice a little higher than usual. I would like to make an appointment for a checkup, please. There was a short pause. Elena's stomach tightened, but then the receptionist said, in a slightly slower voice, Of course. Have you been to our clinic before? Elena hadn't prepared for this question. No, she stammered. This is my first time. The receptionist was patient. No problem at all. I just need to get a few details from you. Can I have your name, please? Step by step, the receptionist guided her through the process. Elena had to ask her to repeat a question once, and she fumbled with her address. But she did it. She made the appointment. When she hung up the phone, she let out a huge sigh of relief. Her hands were trembling, but she had a huge smile on her face. It wasn't perfect, but she had done it. She had faced a huge fear and succeeded. Let's practice this together. Making a phone call can be scary because you can't see the other person's face. You can't use gestures to help you communicate. So, preparation is key. Imagine you need to call a doctor's office to make an appointment. What would you say? Let's practice the opening line. You could say, Hello, I'd like to schedule an appointment, please. Let's try it. Say it out loud. Ready? Great. Now, the receptionist might ask you, Is this for a checkup, or are you feeling unwell? Let's say you just need a checkup. You would say, It's just for a checkup. Let's practice that. It's just for a checkup. Go ahead. Fantastic. The more you practice these small phrases, the more prepared you will feel when you have to make a real phone call. It's about building a toolbox of phrases you can use in different situations. Elena was on a roll. The success of the phone call gave her a boost of confidence. The next day, she decided to tackle another challenge: going to the post office to mail a package to her family back home. The post office was always a place that made her anxious. There were often long lines, and she was always worried she would fill out the forms incorrectly or not understand the clerk's instructions. But today, she walked in with her head held a little higher. She had her package ready, and she had looked up the vocabulary she would need. International shipping, tracking number, customs form. When it was her turn, she walked up to the counter and smiled at the clerk. Hello, she said. I'd like to send this package to her home country, please. The clerk, A middle-aged man with a tired expression looked at her package. "Okay," he said, "you'll need to fill out this customs form." He handed her a form with many small boxes. Elena's heart sank a little. This was what she had been dreading. But she took a deep breath and looked at the form. She filled it out as best she could. And then she had a question. She took the form back to the clerk. "Excuse me," she said, "I'm not sure what to write here for value." The clerk looked at her form and then explained what she needed to do. He was helpful and didn't seem to mind her question. She successfully mailed her package. Another win. On Thursday, Elena decided to take on a slightly bigger challenge. It was a beautiful, sunny day, and the local farmers' market was in full swing. The market was a vibrant, chaotic place, full of the sounds of cheerful vendors, the smells of fresh produce, and the colors of 1,000 different flowers and vegetables. It was exactly the kind of place Elena usually avoided. Too many people, too much noise, too many opportunities for awkward interactions. But today was different. Today, she had a purpose. She was going to buy the ingredients for a special dinner she wanted to cook for herself. She took a deep breath, clutching her reusable shopping bag like a shield, and walked into the heart of the market. Her first stop was a stall piled high with bright red tomatoes. The farmer, a man with a weathered face and a friendly grin, was busy helping another customer. Elena waited patiently, her heart starting to beat a little faster. When it was her turn, she pointed to the tomatoes and said, her voice a little quiet, "Can I have 4 of those, please?" The farmer nodded, his smile widening. "You got it," he said, his voice booming over the noise of the market. "These are the best tomatoes in the whole city, just picked this morning." He weighed the tomatoes and handed them to her. "Anything else for you today?" he asked. Elena hesitated for a moment. She could have just shaken her head and walked away. But she remembered Ben's words, and she decided to try. "What are those?" she asked, pointing to a bunch of leafy green vegetables she didn't recognize. "Ah, those are kale," the farmer said, holding up a bunch. "It's really good for you. You can put it in a salad, or you can cook it with some garlic and olive oil. It's delicious." Elena listened carefully, trying to absorb the new words. "I'll try some," she said, feeling a small surge of pride. She paid for her vegetables and moved on to the next stall, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. Let's take a moment here to practice a similar situation. Let's build on what we did before. Imagine you are at a farmer's market. You see a stall with some delicious-looking strawberries. You want to buy some. What could you say to the vendor? You could say, "Can I have a box of strawberries, please?" Or maybe, "How much for a box of strawberries?" Let's practice that first part. I'll be the vendor. You come up to me and ask to buy some strawberries. Go ahead, say it out loud. Ready? That was great. Now, I am going to respond to you. I'll say, "These are $5 a box. They're very sweet." Now it's your turn to say something else. You need to keep the conversation going. What can you say next? You could ask a question. For example, you could ask, "Can I try one?" Or you could say, "I'll take 2 boxes, please." Let's try it. I just said, "These are $5 a box. They're very sweet." Now, you respond to me. Say it out loud. Excellent! See how that works? A conversation is like a game of catch. One person says something, then the other person says something back. It's a series of small, simple steps. It's about taking that first step, and then the next one. Feeling emboldened by her success at the grocery store and the farmer's market, Elena continued with her daily challenges. Some days were definitely easier than others. On Friday, her challenge was to attend an after-work social gathering with her colleagues. It was a casual get-together at a nearby pub, a chance for everyone to relax and unwind after a long week. Elena was nervous. Social situations were her biggest fear. The thought of trying to make small talk with a group of native English speakers was terrifying. But she had promised Ben she would try, and she was determined to keep her promise. When she arrived, the pub was already crowded and noisy. She saw Ben at a table with a few other colleagues, and he waved her over. "Elena, you made it," he said, his voice full of genuine enthusiasm. He introduced her to the others, and they all smiled and said hello. Elena felt her cheeks flush, but she managed a small smile and a quiet, "Hi." For the first half hour, Elena was mostly silent. She listened to the conversation, nodding and smiling when appropriate, but she didn't say a word. She felt like an outsider, a silent observer on the edge of the group. But then, something shifted. She remembered the farmer at the market and the woman at the grocery store. She remembered the feeling of connection, of being understood. She decided to try. She took a deep breath and turned to the person sitting next to her, a woman named Sarah. "So, what do you do at the company?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah turned to her, a friendly smile on her face. "I'm a project manager," she said. "I help keep all of our projects on track. What about you?" Elena was so relieved that Sarah had understood her that she almost forgot to answer. "I'm a graphic designer," she said, her voice a little stronger this time. They continued to talk for a few more minutes, and then another colleague joined the conversation. Elena didn't say much, but she listened intently, and she felt a small sense of belonging. She was no longer on the outside looking in. She was a part of the group, even if she was just a small part. It was a huge step for her. Later that week, Ben invited Elena to have lunch with him. He had noticed her efforts at the pub, and he wanted to talk to her in a more relaxed setting. They went to a small park near their office, a quiet oasis in the middle of the bustling city. They sat on a bench under a large tree, the leaves rustling gently in the breeze. "So," Ben said, his voice kind and encouraging, "how have the challenges been going?" Elena took a bite of her sandwich and thought for a moment. "They are good," she said, her voice still a little hesitant. "But they are also very hard. Every time, before I speak, I feel this knot in my stomach, like I am about to take a big test." Ben nodded in understanding. "I can imagine," he said. "But you know what? You are passing every test. You are doing it. You are speaking, and you are being understood. That's the most important thing." Elena smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot to me. You know, it's funny. The more I do it, the less scary it becomes. It's still scary, but it's different. It's like the fear is smaller now." Ben's face lit up. "That's exactly it," he said, his voice full of excitement. "That's the magic of practice. It doesn't make the fear disappear completely, but it makes it manageable. It makes it something you can control, instead of something that controls you." He then shared something personal with her. "You know," he said, his voice a little quieter, "I wasn't always so confident. When I was in college, I had to give a presentation in front of a huge class, about 200 people. I was terrified. I practiced for weeks, I knew my topic inside and out. But when I got up on stage, I completely froze. My mind went blank, just like you described. I just stood there for what felt like an eternity, unable to say a word. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Elena was surprised. She had always seen Ben as a confident, natural speaker. "Really?" she asked. "You? But you are so good at speaking." Ben smiled. "I am now, but it took a lot of work." After that presentation, I was devastated. But I decided I had two choices. I could either avoid public speaking for the rest of my life, or I could face my fear. I chose the second one. I joined a public speaking club. The first few times, I was so nervous I could barely speak. But I kept going. I practiced, I made mistakes, and I learned from them. It was a slow process, but eventually it got easier. I learned that confidence isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. Ben's story was a revelation for Elena. It made her feel even less alone. If someone as confident as Ben could have a story like that, then maybe her own struggles were not a sign of failure, but a sign that she was on the right path. A few days later, Ben invited Elena to a dinner party at his house. "A few of our colleagues will be there," he said. "It will be very casual, just a chance to relax and have some good food. I'd love for you to come." Elena's immediate reaction was panic. A dinner party? That meant a whole evening of conversation. Not just a quick 5-minute interaction, but hours of it. Her mind immediately started to fill with all the things that could go wrong. What if she didn't understand the jokes? What if she said something stupid? What if she just sat there in silence all night, looking awkward? She was about to say no, to make an excuse. But then she thought about her conversation with Ben. She thought about his story. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she said, her voice a little shaky. "I'll come." The night of the dinner party, Elena was a nervous wreck. She changed her outfit 3 times. She practiced a few conversation starters in the mirror. When she arrived at Ben's house, she could hear the sound of laughter and conversation from inside. She almost turned around and went home, but she didn't. She rang the doorbell. Ben opened the door with a big smile. "Elena, I'm so glad you could make it," he said. He took her coat and introduced her to the other guests. There were about 8 people there, all colleagues from their company. Everyone was friendly and welcoming, but Elena still felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. For the first hour, she was mostly quiet. She listened to the conversations, trying to follow along. She smiled and nodded, just like she used to do. But then, she remembered her promise to herself. She remembered the baby learning to walk. She decided to try. She turned to a woman standing next to her, who she knew from the design department. "Hi, I'm Elena," she said. "We work in the same department, but we haven't really talked before." The woman, whose name was Chloe, smiled. "Oh, hi, Elena. It's great to finally meet you properly. I've seen your work. It's really good." They started talking about a recent project, and Elena found that she was able to express her ideas. She stumbled over a few words, but Chloe was patient and understanding. Later, at the dinner table, Elena listened to a story one of her colleagues was telling. He was telling a funny story about his vacation. At one point, Elena had a question. She hesitated for a moment, but then she just asked it. "So, what happened next?" she asked. The man smiled and continued his story, and the conversation flowed. It was a small thing, But for Elena, it was a huge victory. She had participated in a group conversation. She had asked a question. She had connected with her colleagues. By the end of the night, she was no longer a silent observer. She was a part of the group. She walked home that night with a feeling of warmth and accomplishment that was even better than the feeling of ordering a coffee. She had faced her biggest fear, and she had not only survived, but she had actually enjoyed herself. She was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Let's think about this situation. A dinner party can be a very challenging situation for a language learner. There are many people talking, often very quickly. The topics of conversation can change rapidly. It can be hard to know when to speak and what to say. So, what are some strategies you can use in a situation like this? One strategy is to focus on one-on-one conversations, like Elena did with Chloe. It can be much easier to talk to one person than to try to jump into a big group conversation. Another strategy is to be a good listener. Pay attention to what people are saying. This will help you understand the conversation, and it will also give you ideas for things you can say. And remember, it's okay to be quiet sometimes. You don't have to be talking all the time. The most important thing is to be present, to be engaged, and to try to connect with people in a genuine way. With each small interaction, with every imperfect conversation, Elena felt her thick wall of fear begin to shrink. It wasn't disappearing completely, but it was becoming smaller, more manageable. In its place, a small seed of confidence was starting to grow. She began to realize that her fears were mostly in her head. Most people were not mean or impatient. In fact, most people were generally kind and willing to help. She started to shift her focus. Instead of worrying about speaking imperfect English, she started to focus on the simple goal of connecting with another person, even for just a moment. One day, as she was walking home from work, she saw a tourist looking at a map, a confused expression on her face. A few weeks ago, Elena would have hurried past, afraid of being asked for directions. But today, she stopped. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Do you need help?" The tourist, a young woman with a backpack, looked up, a look of relief on her face. "Oh, thank you so much," she said. "I'm trying to find the museum, but I think I'm lost." Elena looked at the map and then pointed down the street. "You are very close," she said. "You just need to go down this street, take the second left, and it's right there, on the corner. You can't miss it." The tourist's face broke into a wide smile. "Thank you so much," she said. "You're a lifesaver." Elena smiled back, a feeling of pure joy washing over her. She had not only understood the tourist, but she had also been able to help her. It was a small act of kindness, but for Elena, it was a giant leap forward in her journey. A few weeks passed. Elena had continued her daily challenges, and they were becoming less of a challenge and more of a habit. One sunny morning, she found herself walking past that same cozy cafe, the one where she had felt so defeated. The smell of coffee drifted out the open door, and on an impulse she decided to go in. She told herself this was her new challenge for the day. The same friendly barista with the green apron was behind the counter. This time, however, Elena felt different. She still felt a little flutter of nervousness in her stomach, but it was not the overwhelming panic she had felt before. It was more like a buzz of excitement. When it was her turn, she walked to the counter with a small, genuine smile on her face. "Hi," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Can I please have a large caramel latte with an extra shot of espresso?" The barista smiled back at her, a smile of recognition. "You got it," he said cheerfully. "A large caramel latte with an extra shot. Coming right up." Elena paid for her coffee, making eye contact and saying, "Thank you." As she waited, she didn't feel the need to hide or look at the floor. She looked around the cafe at the other people, feeling like she was a part of the scene, not just a silent observer. When her coffee was ready, the barista handed it to her and said, "Have a great day." Elena looked him right in the eye and said, with a confidence that surprised even herself, "You too." As she walked out of the cafe, clutching the warm cup of her favorite coffee in her hand, she felt a profound sense of pride and accomplishment that she had never experienced before. It was so much more than just ordering a coffee. It was a symbol of her journey. She had faced her fear, and she had won. She had done it. She had spoken with confidence. It was never about the coffee. It was about her voice, and she had finally found it. A couple of months later, Elena faced her biggest challenge yet. Her boss asked her to present a new design concept to a major client. In the past, this would have been her worst nightmare. A formal presentation, in English, to a room full of important people. The old Elena would have been terrified. She would have spent weeks in a state of high anxiety. But the new Elena was different. She was still nervous, of course. The knot in her stomach was still there. But it was a familiar feeling now. It was the feeling of being on the edge of her comfort zone. The feeling of about to do something brave. She spent 2 weeks preparing for the presentation. She researched her topic thoroughly. She created a beautiful and compelling visual presentation. And she practiced. She practiced in front of the mirror. She practiced in front of Ben, who gave her feedback and encouragement. She practiced until the words felt comfortable in her mouth. The day of the presentation, she woke up early. She did some breathing exercises to calm her nerves. She put on her favorite suit, the one that made her feel confident and professional. When she walked into the conference room, she saw the clients sitting around the table. They looked serious and important. For a moment, the old fear started to creep back in. But then she took a deep breath and remembered how far she had come. She remembered the coffee shop, the dentist's office, the farmer's market, the dinner party. She remembered all the small victories that had brought her to this moment. She smiled, a genuine, confident smile. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and strong. "My name is Elena, and I am a graphic designer here. I am very excited to share with you today our new design concept for your brand." She spoke for 20 minutes. She explained her ideas with passion and clarity. She answered the client's questions with confidence. She didn't stumble. She didn't freeze. She was brilliant. After the presentation, the clients applauded. Her boss gave her a thumbs up. Ben was beaming with pride. But the most important thing was how Elena felt. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment, a feeling of empowerment that she had never felt before. She had not only faced her fear, but she had conquered it. She had found her voice, and she was not afraid to use it. Elena's story is a powerful reminder for all of us. It shows us that confidence is not a magical quality that you either have or you don't. Confidence is not something you are born with. Confidence is something you build. It is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. It is built on a solid foundation of small, consistent, and persistent efforts. It is built on the courage to try, especially when you are scared. It is built on the understanding that perfection is not the goal. Communication is the goal. Connection is the goal. Elena didn't become a perfect English speaker overnight. She still makes mistakes. She still has moments of hesitation. But the difference is that she no longer lets her fear control her. She has learned to embrace the process of learning with all its imperfections. She has learned that every mistake is a learning opportunity, and every small victory is a reason to celebrate. So, I want to personally encourage you to be like Elena. I want you to start small. Don't try to have a long philosophical debate in English tomorrow. Start with something manageable. And then, I want you to celebrate your small victories. Did you say good morning to someone? That is a victory. Did you ask a question in a shop? That is a huge victory. Be kind and patient with yourself when you make mistakes, because you will make mistakes. We all do. Remember Ben's advice. Think of the baby learning to walk. Fall down, get back up, and try again. Every single time you try, you are one step closer to where you want to be. So, what is one small, imperfect step you can take this week to practice your English? Think about it right now. What is something that feels a little bit scary, but also possible? Maybe you can leave a short comment on a YouTube video that you enjoyed in English. It only has to be a few words. Great video, thank you, is perfect. Maybe you can find a language exchange partner online and just commit to sending 1 or 2 text messages a day. Or maybe your challenge is even simpler. Maybe you will just practice speaking to yourself in the mirror for 2 minutes every day, describing your day or your plans. Whatever it is, no matter how small it seems, I want you to commit to it. Write it down. Tell a friend. Make it real. And I would genuinely love to hear about your plans. Please share your small step, your personal challenge, in the comments section below this video. When you share your goal, you make it more real. And you also allow others to support you and cheer you on. Let's create a community of encouragement right here, on this journey together. Let's inspire each other with our stories of small victories. Your story could be the inspiration that someone else needs to take their first step. Thank you so very much for listening today and for sharing this time with me. I hope Elena's story has inspired you and shown you what is possible. I hope it has helped you to see that your journey is valid, your struggles are normal, and your voice is important. Remember, speaking English, even if it is not perfect, even if you have an accent, is a brave and wonderful thing to do. You are learning, you are growing, and your voice deserves to be heard. Every time you speak, you are building a bridge between your world and the world of others. You are opening doors to new friendships, new opportunities, and new experiences. If you found this story helpful and encouraging, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to English in Fluency. We have many more listening practices, stories, and tips to help you boost your confidence and achieve your fluency goals. We are here to support you on every step of your journey. Until next time, keep trying, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. You are capable of so much more than you think. Goodbye for now.